What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about Port Adelaide's first round draft pick in the 2024 AFL draft. It's Joe Berry, pick 15. We grabbed the young small forward ad, and I tell you what, there's a big backstory behind all of this and a pleasant surprise for the selection that we took in our first pick of this year's draft, with plenty more to play out over the course of the next few days with spot selections on the list. Joe Berry is the first of the draft for Port Adelaide, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can bring come 2025 and onwards. But let's get straight into it and let's talk about Joe Berry, why Port Adelaide selected him, and the story behind one of the legends of Port Adelaide and his fanciness with Joe Berry. Let's get straight into it. As you can see from some of the highlights there, Joe Berry is a very unique, very crafty forward. He's he's only 181 centimetres. He's a left footer, which I think works a little bit nicer in terms of our forward line and our dynamic when it comes to the young forward line that we're going to be producing in 2025. I paint the picture of Georgiadis, Lukosius, Ollie Lord, Joe Richards, Joe Berry, Willie Rioli, Sam Powell-Pepper, Todd Marshall, a unique dynamic 8 forward line there with 2 rotating on the bench and potentially everyone squeezing in for spots. It's very young, it's very unique, it's a very new forward line, no Charlie Dixon, and you throw in the young Joe Berry in there. It's a very, very exciting lineup, especially with Joe Richards coming in from the Magpies as well. Joe Richards and Joe Berry both trained together over the off-season as well, and they come from the same local club too, so a bit of connection there. But the main reason Port Adelaide have gone Joe Berry in the 2024 draft with their first round pick at pick 15, and we were all thinking, sitting here going, all right, tall forward, tall defender. Even I was projecting Jack Whitlock, or everyone was saying Harry Armstrong or Job Shanahan. They were on the table. And then obviously you're looking at the likes of Luke Traynor was in the mix as well. Richmond picked him up, and Matt Whitlock as well. There's players there that were definitely able to be picked up. But at pick 15, Port went Joe Berry. Traded up, pick 16 and 45 to get into West Coast position at pick 15. Now, a lot of conjecture around that trade. And everyone's like, why would you do that? What's the point? West Coast were going to take this, the same player they had their eyes on anyway. And I'm sitting here going, no. Fremantle were behind us. They had their name written all over Joe Berry. And Port Adelaide traded up. Freo obviously offered West Coast as well to trade up in their selections. And Port undoubtedly looked like they were not going to use pick 45 at the time. The 2 selections in the mid-30s at the moment were going to be selected. So they traded up. They got Joe Berry. They got the man they wanted. And this kid is a superstar. Now, if you want to know why he's a superstar, and everyone's very excited to have him, and if you know the draft and you've actually invested in the time to look at some of these kids that we've targeted, Joe Berry was a target of Robbie Gray. They had a meeting back in August. They went to his hometown. They sat at his dinner table. They've discussed the opportunity that Joe Berry could have at Port Adelaide and the potential. They scouted him. Joe Berry bases his game solely around the uniqueness that is Robbie Gray. He asked him a lot of questions in that interview as well. And was able to, pick his brain, and predominantly in that meeting, it became more of an information centre for Joe and his, want to be better as a footballer and take certain positions from players and traits that he could implement in his game. And I think that's such a beautiful thing as a footballer, is you're able to grasp on your own ability, yet take bits and pieces from players that you idolise. And Robbie Gray is obviously one. Dylan Moore was another that he mentioned. And, he's going to be coming into a forward line with Willie Rioli, who's another crafty forward. And, a lot of people conjecture over the small forward basis, but Joe is more than a small forward. We want someone like a Toby Green, and that's what Fox Footy compared him to, is a Toby Green spec. And, you throw in what Robbie Gray became, and he's an elite midfielder. Joe has a lot more in the tank than just a small forward, in my opinion, and I think that's that's why Robbie Gray, you know, he scouted and said, let's go after Zach Butters and look at the way he's panned out. And Zach was at the draft night, you know, to welcome Joe Berry as well. So you've got Zach Butters, Robbie Gray, picking out these players. Undoubtedly, you're backing this selection because they know talent, they know their abilities, and they know what, you know, we probably need another small forward, and then a small forward that's going to dictate the next 10 to 15 years, you know. Willie Rioli doesn't have long left. You say he's got 2 to 3. You got a doubt over Joe Berry. You've just, Joe Richards. You've just brought in Joe Berry. You've delisted Francis Evans and Quinton Narkle, who were basically the small forwards in the prelim. You got Jed McEntee, who's going to be taken off the rookie list. There's options. Sam Papeppa's coming back in. I think a lot of people seem to discount the fact that we had small forwards, but they weren't crafty. They weren't impact players. They reckon Joe Berry is that. He was an All-Australian in the under-18s this year, averaged 2.3 goals a game. He's got great foot skills. He's got great forward craft. Looking at his highlights, he's good on both feet. His ability to win the footy, be smart around the pack, and be smart with his decision-making. Good football users are ones that we need, especially going inside 50. You know, you release the likes of Willie Rioli. You're able to create opportunities for everyone else. And the players like Joe Berry don't come on often. And I think this is why we've selected him. He might start off as a small forward. He's an 18-year-old. You get 10, 15 years out of him. He's going to become a midfielder. They always become midfielders. And I think you can utilise that. And that's where the strengths come from. You know, if you're compared to Robbie Gray, if you're trying to idolise your game on Robbie Gray and you've been scouted by Robbie Gray, then he's just Robbie Gray 2.0. I love the selection. Was something I didn't expect, but had an inkling that we would do. So very happy with the selection. Port Adelaide, great stuff with Joe Berry. Obviously, 2 more draft picks to come tonight. Obviously, if you're watching this after the fact, I will be doing individual videos on our draftees come over the next couple of days. So look out for that. But overall, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, Port fans. I know we're wanting a tall pick, whether it's a tall forward or a tall defender, and I completely agree. I think tall defender is probably the better option in terms of what could be available. There's a lot of South Australian talent still to be available too. So a lot to look out for. Can't wait to see what we select with the remaining picks. But Joe Berry, I'm looking forward to seeing what you can produce at Port Adelaide over the next 15 years. Thank you very much for watching, Port fans. I hope you enjoyed this video about Joe Berry. Let me know in the comments below about your thoughts with Joe and then obviously all the drafting as well, and what you think he could do at Port Adelaide in 2025 and beyond. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for plenty more Port Adelaide and AFL content to come your way. AFLW live stream on Saturday. We're going to be watching along with the girls taking on North Melbourne in the preliminary final. So jump along for that. Put that in your calendars, 2:35 p.m. on Saturday. I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for watching once again. My name is Anthony, and as always, come the pair.